opportunity to present my research project today. There is no paper before because I'm at the very beginning of the research. So I would like, during this lecture, I would like to share with you my orientations and my ideas about the first participation of Jewish citizens in the popular jury during the French period. I would like to start by explaining the origin of this project. As David said, I worked on a larger topic, which is the history of popular justice. So popular justice is a term very plural, which can include the legitimized rituals, the normative institutions, and the social protest. In the historiography, we can say that legitimized rituals and social protests are very developed, very studied. Unfortunately for me, it's not the case for the normative institutions. So the most famous normative institutions regarding the popular justice is the popular jury and the election of the magistrates. In order to study this undeveloped field, I decided to create in 2012 a research group dedicated to this study, and which include the Université Catholique de Louvain, the Regensburg University, the ISEC in Italy, and my own university. Since 2012, we published several proceedings, and well, this is the moment to share these publications. So there are the two first, and the last one was published 2 weeks ago. The first conference was dedicated to, it was a kind of introduction to the topic. The second one in 2015 was dedicated to the issue of popular justice in times of transitions, and the last one was dedicated to the relations between popular justice and policing, the maintenance of public order. In this group, I'm in charge of the question of popular jury. So as you know, the popular jury is a common law institution which was implemented in continental Europe in the aftermath of the French Revolution. So here we have the two main articles of the first French Constitution of 1791, which organized the two principles of the popular justice. The first one is the Article 2, which is dedicated to the election of the judges, and the second one is the Article 9, which organizes the jury system. There is a very, well, I don't know what's your knowledge about European law, but there is there is a big difference with the English system, is the question of the citizenship. So what is important here to stress is the fact that all the citizens are required to participate to the justice system. This is something that we forgot still today in France, is that originally the jury system which was implemented was the double jury system. So the first one is the grand jury, which is still in application today in America, which will decide if there are enough proofs to send defendants to the trial jury. And the second one is the trial jury itself, which will condemn or acquit the defendant. This system will last during 15 years, almost until the end of the Napoleonic Empire. What is very important to stress is the path, the rhythm of of the meetings of the jury. As you can see, the grand jury will meet every 10 days with 8 jurors in every capital of district. So the district is a very small territory. It's in comparison of, it's a third of a county in England.
This is what, prefecture?
No, the prefecture will be a department. Okay, the prefecture is the main city of the department. So you have a division.
Wait, the district is bigger or smaller?
Smaller, much smaller. It's like, if you know a bit French history, it's like a canton. It's closer to the canton. So, what is very interesting is that many citizens are required to participate to the justice system directly. If you consider today the fact that the participation of the citizens is more or less limited to the election process, here we can state that the citizens are very involved in the practice of the citizenship in the jury system. So here, the popular jury will be implemented in the aftermath of the conquest of France, from the French Revolution to the Napoleonic Empire. Here on this map, we have the territories where the jury system will be implemented outside metropolitan France.
Why have you omitted Britain, which also has a jury system?
Sorry?
Why have you omitted Britain, which also has a
Well,
jury system?
because the jury system which will be applied in these territories will be the French one, with this relation with the citizenship. And also because in my research, these territories were not understudied. So the jury system has been studied a lot in England, but here these territories were not studied. So
when you say outside metropolitan France, you're talking about what we today call it, like northeastern Italy and Netherlands and the Rhineland. Is that what you're talking about?
Exactly. The Netherlands, Belgium. Here, I will not study Italy because the jury system was not implemented. Exactly. The circles are different because the jury system was implemented at different times, different periods. So here, all these territories were under acculturation process regarding the jury system. So, when we studied the question, the issue of popular justice, and especially regarding this topic concerning the Jewish population, we have the legal field and we have the Jewish history. It's always difficult to be specialized in the two fields. So I'm more specialized in the field of the legal history than in the field of the Jewish history. However, I will start to understand my research project. I will start by explaining the legal part, and I will try to meet at the end of my presentation the question of the Jewish situation. So here, to to have the right to participate to the jury system, there are some conditions, there are some requirements. You will dive in the French history quickly. Here we have the different periods of the French history. What we can see is that the main requirement is the age. And the second requirement is that you have to enter in the voter conditions. And these requirements are related to the property, to the worth of the property, the value of the property. So here we have the final difference between passive citizens and active citizens. So only the citizens who are able to pay or to have a property of this value will participate to an active citizenship and by consequence to the jury system. Okay? Actually, this level, this amount of days of work is not so high. It's not so high. It means that a kind of middle class will be able to participate to the jury system. The break is the end of the Napoleonic Empire, because only the people being part of 7 categories will have the right to participate to the jury system. What we can see through these requirements is that the main criteria, the main requirement is the money. You have to have a situation, you have to have enough money to participate to the jury system. It's what we call in French the jury des notables, the jury of the notables. This is a break. Will have an influence on the jury system. So,
don't you have to not to be part of the administrative structure in order to be eligible to serve? Let's say
you have
senior public servants can nevertheless serve in the jury.
Sorry?
Like point 3,
Yes.
public servants
Yes.
can serve in the jury,
They can serve. Yes.
even though they might be part of the governance structure. So
No,
is
there are
not
some
that
exceptions. There are some exceptions.
So
Yes.
very high echelons are.
So here is, for example, an administrator of a department will have the right to participate to the jury system. But of course, a minister will not have the right to participate. So there is a kind of division. There are some exceptions, but the idea is that the Napoleonic power want to have the support of the public servants. It's the local level. Yes.
Two quick clarification. Is this only for criminal cases or also for
I forgot to precise that the jury system is competent only in penal issues.
And also today in France,
And-
there is a jury right for serious crimes or something?
Exactly.
Is there continuity?
A total continuity. Yes. The only difference, the grand jury disappeared in 1811, but what we call the Court of Assizes is originated from this period. So it didn't disappear with the Rhineland. It didn't disappear during since 200 years. So here we have, so I explained quickly the requirements, the general requirements to have the rights to be juror. And now I will shortly explain the processes to become jurors, which have, these processes have a big influence on the issue of the balance of powers. So here, every 3 months, the municipality, which is an elected institution at that time, will draw up a list of citizens capable to be jurors. And the administration, which is also an elected institution, will make a list of potential jurors proportionate to the population of each arrondissement. So here, what is important to stress is that elected institutions will have or had the power to choose people which can form the jury. So here we are in the stage before. We are not doing the court. Okay, we're not in the court. We are in the stage before. They will make a list, and from this list, for instance, 12 citizens will be chosen by lot during the session of the court. Do you understand it? So we are in the previous stage here, which is very important because this is at this stage that the names and the citizens will be chosen. So from 1801, I remind you that we have the coup of Brumaire, which is the arrival of Napoleon on in the advent of the consulate. The system doesn't change. We still have a justice of the peace, which is elected at that time, who will draw up a list of citizens capable to be jurors. The under-prefect, which is appointed by the government, will reduce by 1/3 the list of potential jurors, and the prefect will reduce by half and by lot the list of potential jurors. So, still during the consulate and the majority of the empire, so this is the period of the dictatorship, the justice of the peace will have will be in the first position to draw up this list, which is a fundamental tool to decide who will be juror. The under-prefect, which is appointed, has a power to reduce and to select by 1/3 the potential jurors. But what is important is that the justice of the peace will drive the first names of the potential jurors. From the First Empire, so from the end of the First Empire, the system changed completely. At the origin of the system, we don't have an elected public servant, or we don't have a municipality or justice of the peace. No, we have directly a prefect who is appointed, who will draw up a list of only 60 citizens, and after the chairman of the criminal court will reduce this list. So only public servant appointed will play and will determine the list of the future and the potential jurors. I explain it very quickly because, as you can imagine, there will be consequences on the type of jury respected the system. What is important to stress now is the Declaration of the Rights of Man and of the Citizen. These two articles will change completely not only the situation of the common citizens in France, but also of the Jews in France and after in the French Empire. So the first article reaffirms the equality of rights before the law. The second recognized the religious freedom. The religious freedom. So from that period, all the Jews, every Jewish population or community can be considered as a French citizen. This is a fundamental revolution. Here I will just quickly explain the situation of the Jewish communities during the Napoleonic Empire. I don't know, are you specialized in early 19th century? Not especially France, no? So, okay. Contrary, in contrast,
For example, like certain aspects of French law were imposed kind of on eastern territories such as Germany and also Poland. So it's that kind of like the civil did travel east, but you say that the concept of a popular Jewry, which is also part of the revolution, didn't travel. You see it only in France and Italy.
not Italy, exactly. Yes.
The northern.
Yes. So here we have a map of the Jewish communities. So in contrast with the end of the 19th century, for instance, the Jews were very few, and because we are just after the end of the Ancien Régime, they couldn't move as they wanted. So we have a kind of fixed communities, and the main communities were in Bordeaux, which are the Portuguese Jews, mainly merchants. They are there since the 16th century. We have the German Jews on the east of France and inland, and we have, of course, the Dutch Jews, mainly in the region of Amsterdam.
So only the Bordeaux Jews spoke French as...
Exactly. They were completely assimilated to the rest of the French population. It's not the case of the population of the German Jews, who were part of territories which were annexed by France only in the course of the 17th century, in the context of the wars of Louis XIV. So these are populations which are very not so well assimilated. They are victims of discriminations, rejections by the local population. What is important?
There was no meaningful Jewish population in Paris.
Very few. And until the end of the Ancien Régime, they didn't have the right to stay there. So they were more or less hidden.
Mm-hmm.
What is important to stress is that here in Bordeaux, in general, the Jewish population was wealthy. It was not at all the case in the east part of France, which is more this kind of representation. The Jewish communities, the Jewish population were traveling settlements from a very poor condition. But this situation changed a bit at the end of the Ancien Régime. With there was, in the context of the Enlightenment, there was a movement for the emancipation of the Jewish population. So we have several texts from Wilhelm von Daun, Mirabeau, Henri Grégoire. And Henri Grégoire had a very huge influence on the French Constituent Assembly, and he he's very well known to protect the rights of the blacks, but also to defend the rights of the Jews. So, what happened between 89 and 91? During 2 years, the French Assembly tried to forget the Jewish case, and the Jewish communities had to fight to remind the application, the mandatory application of the Declaration of Rights. And after a lot of debates, a lot of struggles, the Constituent Assembly, just before the end of the Constituent Assembly, decided to remind that the Jews will benefit of every political and civil rights. So, from this law, and now from 1889, the Jews became ordinary and French citizens. There were no more discrimination from this time. It means that from the 1st January 92, when the jury system was implemented and organized in France, the Jews could participate to the jury system. So here, the challenge of this research is to assess and to determine if some Jews will benefit from their rights to participate to this jury system.
There's something like consistoire, there's
So the consistoire.
Napoleonic.
Yes, exactly.
It didn't exist in the first
No,
place.
no. So it's a very important question, because Napoleon was considered as the protector of the Jews. In the reality, it's not at all the case, because of course he organized the consistoire, he organized the religion, but in the reality, the Jews lost a lot of rights. He reintroduced some restrictions and discriminations regarding the economic and social requirements. So the period during the French, what I call the French period, it means the French Revolution and the Napoleonic Empire, during this time, the period, the most liberal period for the Jews was between 92 and 1807, which is the Napoleonic reform. So of course the religion was not organized, but it was a liberty. So the discriminations, there were some discriminations regarding the religions, which was not specific to the Israelites, which was also which concerned also the Catholics, the Protestants, and every religion. So for me, during this period, from that time, that the Jews knew the best civil conditions and were considered as equal to the other French citizens. So what is interesting in the historiography of the Jewish studies is that there were many studies regarding the process of emancipation of the Jewish communities during this period. There were many researches on the economic aspect, on the social aspect, on the religious aspect, but they didn't pay attention to the importance of the justice as a tool of participation to the democracy and to the political life of the country. And this is this aspect that I would like to develop in this new research project. I have to say that this importance of the justice in the balance of powers was not very well known, even among the in the political sciences in France today. They stayed with the idea, okay, we have the three powers, and the main power is the legislative power. But actually, what I would like to stress is that the justice power was actually the best tool for the participation of the citizens, and in the case of the Jews, maybe it was the best tools in the process of the emancipation, of their emancipation.
Yeah, identify it like you're looking at lists of people.
I will come with this, exactly. But this is a challenge to recognize and to determine who is Jews and who is not. So we have, so I remind you that, okay, here, some lists were drawn up, and here, we have this list. So we have printed lists of potential jurors, and the 12 jurors of the trial jury or the 8 jurors of the grand jury will be chosen among this list. Okay? So here we have the example of the Montagnard department, which is, and the main city is Mainz. So this is Rhineland, Greenland. And so these lists are printed because every municipality had to have this list.
There was at least one Jew there.
Which one?
Salomon Ansha, professor.
Exactly. Well done. So I go back with to your question: how to know who is Jews and who is not? So here I did it in a very quick way. Is that one method is that the first name is a biblical name of the Old Testament. The Jews were the only one to have these first names. So it's easy. You code the names of this list and you check the David, Isaac, Solomon, Abraham, etc. Unfortunately, not every Jew had a first name from the Old Testament. So what I will have to do is to find out the census and to compare the names of these Jewish census with the names of these trimestrial lists.
So the census is the governmental census?
Yes, exactly.
And they collected religious affiliation?
Exactly.
Or self-reporting or something like this?
Exactly. But they did it also for every religion. So for the Catholic, for the Protestants, they did it the same. This is the age of the statistics. So from the late 18th century, they decide to produce a lot of statistics. There is a very important difference with the early 18th century. From the French, and especially in the judicial system, they produce a lot of judicial statistics also. So here we have census, unfortunately not for every year, but we can do some estimation of the population, of the Jewish population. So what is interesting here, I will go back here. So here we have the population of the Rhineland. As I said, unfortunately, well, I will enter in the question of the archives. We don't have archives for everything. Fortunately, we have all the archives for the Montagnard department, so the region of Mainz. and this is one of the regions with the highest, the most concentrated population of Jews. So we will have the opportunity to get good results in the course of the research. What is interesting to stress is that even, so when I said that the Jewish communities are concentrated in these areas, it doesn't mean that we don't have any Jews in the rest of France or in the rest of Europe. There are some Jews, for instance, in Antwerp, in Maastricht. There are very few, less than 100, but even in this case, we can find back Isaac, we can find back Abraham, we can find back Daniel. So it's very interesting regarding the question of the emancipation. Is
No
that
Protestants use biblical names?
No, they don't use it. No. What?
Now we had a candidate called Phyllis. Maybe it's one of the forefathers. Yeah, I just said somebody was supposed to give a job to.
So, what is important here is that in the space of one day, there is some testimonies of the presence and the participation, not especially the participation, but the authorities decide to choose Jews. And what is interesting is that in Maastricht and in Antwerp, the Jews were very few, so I don't think that we can speak. We don't know if there were some discriminations. There were so many few. It's not possible to assess. But what is important is that for Mainz, at the end of the Ancien Regime, there were discriminations. For sure, there was also always this danger to be excluded, to lose the rights. But here, I forgot to specify that we are in 1800, so we have the names for 1800, just 3 years after the annexation of this territory to France. And so, after 3 years, only 3 years, we have the presence of Jews. It means that the administration, the justice of the peace, agreed to choose some Jews. It's something that we have to think about. I don't have all the answers, but it's something very radical in comparison with the situation of the Ancien Régime. In the space of very few years, the Jews were inserted, were implemented in the political life. Here it's politics.
You mean that they made it to the final list?
Sorry?
They made it to the final list?
This is the final list.
This is the final
Yes.
list, yeah, okay.
So, after it doesn't mean that they will try.
Yes.
After that, they will be chosen by lot.
Right.
So it will not be a decision of an administrator, of the government will not have, after this list, the government has no power to choose or not choose a Jew.
So can I ask about the preliminary stage? Because I wonder why, first of all, why did they, do we know why they choose this laborious system where you start with a long list and then someone chooses to make it a shorter list, then another person makes it even shorter, and then we make lottery as opposed to just making lottery to begin with?
Well, it's not
And I guess maybe I'll ask my second question. I mean, do they need to provide any rationale for why they're narrowing down the list or why they choose to exclude certain people, or and what could be such rationale? What would be the reasons? All they have is the names.
So here, the reason of this process is the participation of the local institutions, because they want to have lists which are proportionate to the population. So the only authorities which can choose and decide the names are the local institutions. So the ideology here is the participation of the local institutions.
Yes, I understand. So they're narrowing it down so they get to a more proportionate. So the shorter list becomes more representative of the larger population. Or all the institutions in the community. Is that a correct way of saying it?
No.
Okay. so I didn't understand it.
So here, every municipality will send the names of the potential jurors, and after the administration will make a general list which will be proportionate to the population. Okay, to the local population.
Yeah.
So for instance, here it will be proportionate to every district. Okay, not to every municipality, but to every district. Okay. The idea behind this is that you will not be tried by a majority of jurors coming from one place or only from the cities, but you will be tried by a jury who will be more or less representative to the general population of the district or of the department. This is the idea. The idea of this, it's a way...
Geographically, but not, let's say, socio-economically.
No. Exactly. Demographically. Just the numbers.
Only based on the address, not on any other characteristics.
Exactly. There are no discrimination regarding the profession. This requirement will appear at the end of the period. Here, you have the discrimination regarding the professions or social statute. But until 1811, it didn't exist. They couldn't do it. Yeah. It was impossible. So it's very interesting because before 1811, the government has no power to interfere, to influence the drawing of these lists. Okay. So, but as you said, the municipality will choose. The justice of the peace will choose. So what we see before the general list, there are intermediate lists. And we can see the names who will be deleted and who will never be on this general list. So one of the aspects of my project will be to compare who was deleted, who was not, and to see if we will have some results. To answer your question, I don't know if there are policies regarding not only the confession, but regarding the profession, regarding the social statutes, regarding maybe local cities. Maybe there are no. I cannot answer immediately. It will be one of the challenge of the research.
It was at least initially that it would be very easy for an anti-Semitic underperfect or perfect to just delete Jewish names without having to give any reasons for that, right? And then the fact that we do see a lot of Jewish names in the end is, I think, remarkable in that respect.
Yes, exactly. So also, one of the aspects of the project will be to assess on the length of the period what will be the difference regarding firstly the norms, and if the changes of the norms will influence the presence of or the participation of the Jews. It's a long work. I'm just at the start of the project.
The actual effect might be different that connects to a paper that we had before. Like if you think about the French government being like, it's not a colonial ruler exactly in the eastern part, like in Rhineland, but it's their,
No, there are no difference.
they
No,
don't,
no. There was a kind of intermediate legal situation during the space of 2 years, but so between 95 and 97. But from 97, they are considered they are under the same rule than the other French.
yeah.
There are no
but
difference.
Like they come, it may be that the case is that the laws are similar, but the population is not being ruled by the French government in the same way that, and like, if you're a new type of government, you actually often rule using minorities. It was the case in India, for example.
Ah yes, but you know I
Like
said
you
that well, there are so few. I don't know. You will see the statistics now. You will understand the issue. So, in the right column, you have the proportion of the of the
But
Jews.
that's what Asaf is saying, so if you find, if you find over-representation of
Yeah.
Jews on the lists,
Yeah.
It
They're not
may be
anti-Semites,
because-
it's what's the other
it
way.
may be because they, you know,
Yeah, they like it.
the opposite of, you know,
Right.
the hypothesis, right?
Right,
Actually,
exactly,
they
right.
want Jews, because Jews like the French maybe more than the Germans do. I don't know.
I will investigate these
Yeah.
hypotheses. Yes, yes, exactly. So I have some. I will show some results. So of course, to have pertinent reasons, I have to find a department with enough Jews. Here we are in the metropolitan France. So the only departments with a Jewish population upper of 1% is the east side of France. So Strasbourg, Colmar, and Metz are cities from territory situated in the east part of France, next to Rhineland. It's next to Rhineland. Below, even the Jews from Bordeaux, they are very few. You can see only 2,100. And after, of course, it doesn't mean that you will have 2,131 Jews having the right to participate. They have to be owner, they have to pay taxes, etc. Which is a problem, of course, because in the poorest part of the Jewish population in the east of France, maybe there are much more, but they are poor. So maybe I will have more Jews in Gironde than in east part of France. Do you understand? Because they are richer in the region of Bordeaux. With
The Paris Jews are relatively new migrants in the city.
nobody know. So here, yes, of
In
course,
Paris.
from 92. So from the law of 91, the Jews had the opportunity to move. And so at the end of the Ancien Régime in Paris, there were something like 400. You can see in the census of 1811, there were already almost 3,000. So migration is growing.
Yeah.
Movement between inside France.
Why do you use two different senses?
And for, yeah, because they have on this, we have, because in 1806, we don't have a statistic of Jewish population.
Yeah, but
In
you have
1811, we have
Yeah.
only statistic for Jewish population.
Okay.
It's not my statistic actually. Some author did this work. So, but okay, it's just an estimation. Maybe there will be a difference of 2% or 1%, but I don't know. I don't think. It's just to have a general estimation of the
But in case of Paris,
representation.
it could make a lot of difference because what you're saying now. The population grew, I mean, by more than 2,000 people.
Well, I will tell you that unfortunately for Paris, the archives burned during the Commune, so it's impossible to investigate on, unfortunately, on the jury system in Paris. with the extension of the French territory, we can see, so here I did a division between the territories with less than 1% and more than 1%. So in France, there were only 3 departments. Now, with the annexation of these foreign territories, there are much more. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And we can see, what is interesting is that, unfortunately, all the Dutch departments, I can study the Dutch department, and I will do it, but they were French only from 1811. So from the moment that all the jury system was totally controlled by the government. The more interesting departments are the departments, the German departments, which are in Italy here. Rhin-Moselle, Coblence, Sarre, Montener. I think that in these territories we will have very good results at the end of the comparison between the lists. I would like to. So, as I said, I'm just at the beginning of the research, but I have one result that we can discuss, and we just started to do it. This is for the Montener department. So, what we can see is that the representation of the Jews in the juries is higher than in the rest of the population. And this statistic is only, I did this statistic only from the analysis of the names. So the names of the Ancien Testament. It means that this is a minimal rate. Actually, this rate, I think, can be maybe higher of 1/3, yes, something like this. But what is interesting is that it should be the double, at least the double of the statistic regarding the general Jewish population. So, the Jews are selected to participate to the jury system. They are not excluded. This is the contrary of the Ancien Régime conception. And also what is interesting, but it's only preliminary results, is that in 1830, when all the jury system is completely controlled by the Napoleonic government, we have the same rate. So the reduction of the rights of the Jews after the creation of the Consistoire in 1806 didn't influence the presence of the Jews in the jury system. And, well, this is something new that I would like to investigate. And, of course, here I have only the numbers, but there is also correspondence. And I have, next week I will move to Alsace, so the east part of France, to take pictures of the general list of the jurors. So in this territory, which with a very high representation of Jews, I will have also the result. We will be able to match the judicial archives and the administrative archives.
Do you see, like, is there like, I assume that if they are indeed represented kind of disproportionately, that there'll be some like effect on newspaper discussions maybe, or do you see people saying in the sources that not too many Jews, or kind of it's a problem? So,
There were this kind of information, especially at the end of the Ancien Régime. So when, for instance, the elite, the non-Jewish elite of the eastern territories of France realized that the Jews will have the same rights, yes, they go to the assembly to do pressure, to influence, to impeach, to have this equality of rights. Regarding the participation of the Jews in the jury system, in the justice system, I don't know. I don't see anything. Well, the question of the newspaper, for instance, the press, it's mainly something which we can study from the second half of the 19th century. But during this period, there are not a lot of journals and newspapers that we could analyze, especially also because from the Napoleonic period, everything is controlled. So from 1800, the liberty of press disappeared. So what is interesting is that regarding the jury system, finally, the jury system until quasi the end of the Napoleonic period will be the only place where people, where citizens can participate to the political life, to the not the democracy, because we are already in the dictatorship. There are no more legislative power, but here in the jury system, they can act. They can act. They have the power. They have the power. I will be able to find information in the reports, in the local reports, between, not at the governmental level, but at the local level, for instance, between the Justice of the Peace and the Underprefect, or the municipality and the department. At this level, I will find some information. Yeah.
Or I don't know if there is such a thing, but if judges wrote memoirs, or
No, I have never heard even or about other topics. No, at that time. No.
lawyers would.
But it's something which will happen after 1820. But during this period, no, almost.
Do you have any sense from the literature, not your own studies, but rather the literature and other spheres of life, to what extent was this kind of legal sphere exceptional in the integration of Jews, or can you see similar integration of Jews in, let's say, economic activity as it is reflected in tax assessments, or in conscription to the military service? Or?
Regarding you mean the other aspect of the Jewish integration of the Jewish?
Jewish integration into society. To what extent is this exceptional, or is it representative of Jewish integration into society?
For me, it's representative of the Jewish integration. In the historiography, there are a lot of works about the combat of the discriminations. But the Jews understood quickly that they will benefit of every rights. Of course, after their contest, for instance, there is the issue of the debts, because the Jewish communities were organized as communities. And what they will do with the debts of the community, because the communities will disappear. So the change between the Ancien Régime, the Jewish organization under the Ancien Régime, and this advent of the liberty has consequences. A lot of Jews will know the bankruptcy. So they will lose a lot of money in this process. What is interesting is that they will not benefit of any advantage. For instance, they will have to pay the debts of the community. There will not be nationalizations a nationalization of the debt, like it was the case for the seigneurial debt, of all the debt of the Ancien Régime. No, the Jews will have to pay.
But let's say a military service. Were Jews obliged to serve in the military?
So what is interesting?
And can you use the same type of methodology to see whether they actually participate in this?
As I said, I'm not specialized in the
but
Jewish studies.
Yeah, I was wondering whether there are somewhat similar studies in
What I
Jewish
have-
history
Yeah.
that try to see integration.
What,
of
for
Jews
instance,
in-
regarding
But
the
that is a conscription, like it's a late 19th century
Yes.
thing, like popular conscription. I don't think
So the Napoleonic
No.
was no conscription.
No. Yes, they do conscription. They do. There is a very big issue regarding the conscription, especially from 1806. So the conscription in France happened from 95 or 98. I don't remember 98. The Jews 1798. The Jews participated to the conscription. Sorry. The issue happened from 1806 and the organization of the consistoire when Napoleon reintroduced discrimination. For instance, he didn't accept that the Jews found somebody to replace them in the context of the conscription, which was right, and the Jews didn't benefit from this right. You understand?
Yeah, others could do it, but the Jews could not. That's the.
For instance, if you didn't want to participate to the military service or to the conscriptions, you can find another guy. You will pay him, and he will do the service
Yeah.
in place of you.
And this period
And the
shows-
Jews couldn't do.
Yeah.
It was forbidden by the Napoleonic rule.
Well, that raises a methodological issue. Is the over-representation of Jews just because maybe they were overrepresented among property holders or people with money?
It's possible. It's possible.
Yeah.
It's possible because, but why?
So like an empirical, a statistics-minded economist would say, I want you to control for that variable, right?
No, but you're right. The problem is that I don't know.
I know it's going to be methodologically
yeah.
possible to get that. If all you're going is based on people's names, on these lists, it'd be very hard to find out their.
But the Jewish population was
Basically compared to tax lists, if you have them.
the Jewish population of this part of France was not the richest in comparison.
Right.
So
Yeah, but still, like on the professions next to their names that you showed, they're all sort of middle class. They have businesses or they have, or they're teachers or whatever. They have
Well,
some.
what is interesting here-
Agricultural labor.
Right.
They
They
couldn't
weren't
be.
peasants. They weren't peasants. They weren't peddlers. Right.
So here-
Yeah.
So here it's very this kind of profession you will find in all in the non-Jewish population.
Right.
It's not exceptional.
But you don't see here.
The peasants.
There's no Jewish. Well, there probably aren't a lot of Jewish peasants. And anyhow, and like the peddlers, the picture you showed.
No, okay, exactly. The peddlers will not be there.
You're not gonna find them here.
So there's a merchant, you don't know, it's a marchand.
So merchants, rentier, yes, teacher, inman, winemaker. It's this is very representative of this middle class.
Yes.
And of course the peddlers, you will not find them there. But
I wonder if there's, if there are, from a comparative perspective, I think it's a super interesting story. So I wonder what happened at the same time, before and after in England and in the United States, where you also had Jewish systems. You had some kind of emancipation of the Jews, but maybe more gradually.
yes, but they
France.
didn't benefit from the same rights than the French Jews.
Right, it was different. It was much more gradual, right?
Exactly. But at that time, the Jews were the more equal in the world. Well, I mean, in the Occidental world.
I think it would depend on where. Like, there might be some American states at the same time that have pretty much, complete freedom of religion and complete citizenship for Jews, and others had a confessional test of some sort.
There was this
Which
equality.
States?
I think Rhode Island, I think, was very
maybe Rhode
free.
In America, you had,
was pretty creative.
if I'm not wrong, but I'm not specialist in the topic, in America you had this equality on the federal level, but not on the state level.
Well, it depended on the state, I think. So
Yes,
I remember
States could establish religion.
exactly.
like
The question is
Maryland had
which
established religion, but I think many did not. Many had, did give rights. I mean, I don't know. So again, but there's a literature on this, on Jewish voting rights, Jewish rights to sit in the legislature, and possibly also jury service. I don't.
Yeah,
But why is jury service not a duty? Why is it a right?
Well, I think
Also,
it was a duty there.
It's a Republican duty, so if you want to be a real citizen,
You have to serve in the military and pay taxes.
Exactly. So
No,
if
it does represent the equality maybe in the, but I'm not sure I would view it as a right.
Right, I mean, you're right. It's funny kind of right. Like military service, kind of like conscription or like things.
Okay, so maybe it enables you to be part of the
Politics.
people, yeah, but still.
people don't like it.
Yeah, and maybe they impose it on the Jews
Yeah.
and not.
no, but this presence of the Jews is very tricky because they were not chosen by a Jewish justice of the peace, or they were not chosen by a Jewish administrator or municipality. Even if you have, and it will be, I will have to assess which territory will have the highest proportion of Jews, and to see if there are differences between these territories and other territories where there would be very few. I don't know.
And also, do you think that the people were aware of what was going on in the courts in terms of the juries? Because it's,
Aware of what?
did they know the percentage of Jewish jurors?
Well, I'm sure that the Justice of the Peace knew who was
No, I'm asking
Daniel.
about the people. I'm sure that Justice of the Peace knew because it was
Ah,
part of
yes.
the selection process.
Well,
Because this was a popular jury, right?
yeah.
They know, they see them, so.
These lists were
Because
published.
it's a criminal trial, so they see them.
Also,
but
these lists
still.
were published.
The people read. The people read.
Interesting question.
And no one read it beforehand, but once you were
No, but you know the
in court, you had a time to talk to your jurors.
you know, I did the research on the list, but after I have to do the research to check if some Jews participated too.
And actually,
Actively.
I want to argue with what Shani just said. So today, no one wants to serve on a jury. It's like you said, it's a duty. But I imagine if you were a Jew,
Who were
in
just-
Mainz or
who were
whatever,
just emancipated.
you're just emancipated, you
Yeah.
actually might think it's a great thing that you could serve on a jury. I don't know.
No,
The
totally.
question was more whether the people who chose them thought they were doing them like a favor and including them in the polity, or it
It's a status
was like,
symbol.
okay,
We are at the beginning of the citizenship in France and in many of these territories. So even if only a part of the population participate to the jury system or to the citizenship, it's a bigger part than in the past. So we have to remember how was the Ancien Régime, and I'm sure actually if they don't come to the session, the jury session, they will be tried. But I have to say that in the records there are very few people being tried, and the majority participate. It is very wonderful, as you said. Today nobody wants to do it. Enfin, I will not say that nobody wants to do it, but it's something which is a bit lost. The meaning of this duty is a bit lost in Europe. I will not speak about America, because we have all this grand jury activity which can still be.
But still, no one wants to do it either.
No, okay. So, but I think that at that time it was completely different.
yeah.
And in England, people didn't want to do it either back then, even because if you were a juror, you could get punished by the judges for all kinds of things.
Well, in England, in the grand jury, for instance, at that time it was only the elite who participated to the jury.
Yeah.
This is the opposite here. It's the middle class. I can say, well, the middle class is not so middle. It's a short part of the population, but in comparison with the Ancien Régime, this is a revolution. So, to answer to the paper of today, the previous paper, this is the revolution. according to me. I think that the change is a bit the same that with the slavery. When the slavery is abolished, in the space of one day, you will benefit of every right.
Right, it becomes citizen.
Yeah. This is the same process which happened here.
All right, so thank you very much.
Thank